Changes.
Good evening, everybody, and thanks for coming out on this rather cold evening this evening. Tonight I'm giving a talk on building a DVM DMR hotspot from the ground up. So it is going to start off pretty much simple, stupid, talk you all the way through about how to build it and configure it. If we have enough time, because there is a lot to go through, I will try and do a demo at the end, which we try and do it live and get it all configured. I was going to try and do it all live as a demo, but as we know, sometimes the Wi-Fi in here can be a little bit troublesome. So I decided I'll do it all as a slideshow first and talk you through all the various steps. And then if we have time at the end, I'll demo it and demo it working, hopefully. We'll see how we get on. So without further ado, just a very quick recap of DMR. So what is DMR? DMR is digital mobile radio. It's a method of transmitting an analog audio modulated signal, so i.e. your voice, and it uses a digitally modulated audio signal to send that data. So if you remember in the good old days when we had dial-up modems, the squeaky noises it made from the modem, literally this is pretty much doing the same sort of bit in reverse order. So your voice goes into the radio. Inside the radio there's an analog to digital converter and a digital to analog converter to convert it back. You talk into it, it converts it into binary, transmits that as an audio signal, so making squeaky noises. You ever listen to DMR on a normal radio, you hear like short tone bursts. That's it transmitting the digital signal. It gets to the radio at the other side, and that has the same analog to digital converter and digital to analog converter. That converts the binary data back into audio, and you hear what the person is saying at the other end. So I just wanted to quickly cover that, just the basics of DMR, so that people sort of understand it. So what can you do with DMR? Well, you can talk simplex, so as long as the two radios are configured correctly, you can talk simplex between radio to radio. You can also use a repeater, which enables you to talk to people a bit further afield by using a repeater. Same mechanism is still being used. You're still sending the digital signal through the repeater to the other local user. And then the other thing that you can do is, if the repeater is connected to the internet, then you can then use it to talk to worldwide users. And finally, the bit that we're interested in this evening is effectively what you're doing is you're replacing the repeater. I should really use my expensive pointy stick. I don't do laser pointers. So you're replacing the repeater with an DVM hotspot, and it basically sort of acts like a repeater, and that enables you to connect to the internet and talk to worldwide users. It also means that you can have this DVM hotspot in your house wherever you want, and then so you then have access to DMR via it that way. So what are the components of a DVM hotspot? DVM is multi-mode digital voice modem, is what it stands for, just in case people didn't know what it was. And there's really four main components to have one, build one in your house or wherever. First of all, you need some sort of computer. People usually use a Raspberry Pi. Other people you can build them on other systems, but The most common one is Raspberry Pi because they're inexpensive, easy to get hold of, and small form factor. So it's it makes it really easy to build them. You then need the modem, so the multi-mode digital modem to work with the computer. In Raspberry Pi language, people call them a HAT, which stands for hardware attached on top. So with a Raspberry Pi, we'll see in a minute, it has a load of input and output pins on it, which allow you to attach different peripherals to it. And in this case, you're attaching this HAT, which is basically just your voice modem, which you're going to attach on top. You need a local internet connection. You can use either Wi-Fi or Ethernet, depending on the Raspberry Pi that you get, what the capabilities of that. The small Raspberry Pi that we use in this example has only got Wi-Fi on it. It hasn't got an Ethernet port on it. But if you go for the older Raspberry Pi 3s and 4s, they will have and the newer 5s, I believe, will have an Ethernet port, so you can connect it into your local internet hub, access point, whatever. But as I say, I'm going to be doing all of this is based around the Pi Zero, which is a very, very small Raspberry Pi, and that only has Wi-Fi capability. And then finally, you then need some software running on the Raspberry Pi, which will control the modem, the digital voice modem, and its access to the internet and everything else. And thanks to some clever people out there, they have written some free software. So sort of just along the bottom is Raspberry Pi, need a modem, need some software, and in this case we're using PiStar for the example of the software that is being used to control all of this. There is other software available, but most commonly people are using PiStar. They're slowly moving away from it because there's a new version of software out, but we'll stick with PiStar for this. So this is your components. You have the Raspberry Pi Zero. These are the input and output pins that I talked about. This is your MMDVM HAT, and in this example I'm using a duplex one, so it has two antennas. Because it acts, this one will act like a repeater. There's other HATs out there that have a single antenna, and they operate on simplex. So when you program them, you just program one frequency to talk into it and one frequency to talk out of it. With this, it acts like a repeater, so you have an input frequency and an output frequency. Reason I get bought by these is because they're slightly more diverse in what you can do with them, and they're constantly coming up on AliExpress. Other outlets are available. Outlets are available, but they are constantly coming up there on specials, and they usually end up being cheaper than the simplex ones, which is why. And just to give you an idea of cost, Raspberry Pi Zero, £16–17, something like that. When I bought this on special, around about £17. So altogether it cost me £31 there-ish. And then finally the SD card, which goes into the Raspberry Pi. That's where your software is stored. Just think of it as a hard disk if you like, but that's where all the software is stored. So the first thing you need to do, you've bought these from wherever you get them from. As I say, AliExpress, eBay, Pimaroni is it for the Raspberry Pis. So the first thing to do is stick them together. So as I say, it has a row of these input-output pins on the Raspberry Pi, and there's two rows of 10 pins on the HAT. And basically you just carefully align the pins. It's very easy, especially if your eyesight's not great, to misalign the pins. So make sure that you align them and then push them firmly together. And then in the end, that's pretty much what it looks like. So that's the Raspberry Pi on the bottom, and that's the DVM hat, which is actually bigger than the Raspberry Pi that sits on top. So once you've got that file, you need to install the software on the Raspberry Pi. So what they do is that the people who make the PiStar software, so that you don't have to completely install an operating system, so a Linux operating system, and then compile the software on top of it, they create an image, what they call a disk image, if you like, or Raspberry Pi image, which contains both the operating system and the actual PiStar software on there. So it's all in one, it's just one package, and you can then load that onto the SD card. And to do that, you need to have this Raspberry Pi imaging software. Again, you'll probably find 5 or 6 different versions of imaging software out there. I use this one, it's off the official Raspberry Pi website. It works, it does what it says on the tin. So, so first of all, you need to download this imaging software, which you can get from this address. By the way, this slide deck will be made available after the talk. It'll be on the sdarc.net website. I'll ask James kindly to provide it for us. So you need to download this bit of software, and this is the software that you're going to use to write the image that you then download to the SD card. So download this first, you run the install file, and basically you end up with this software. With this, if you go to the website and download it, it will download. What you have to do is make sure you select the correct image for your Raspberry Pi. Most of the time, if you just bought a normal standard Raspberry Pi, not a cloned one or anything else, you can select the bottom one, which is version 4.2.1. Select that. If you've bought anything like any of these Nano Pis, the whatever that second one down is, or the
Odroid,
Odroid, yeah, or any of them, though you need to download that image. But most people, if you buy a standard Raspberry Pi, the bottom one will do you. So you download that file, and it will come down as a zipped file, which is like a compressed file. So you download the zip file, and I'm sure most of you are aware, in Windows, zipped file, you need to unzip it to get the file out of the actual image file that you want. And this is the image file that you'll end up with. It's a .img image. So when you unzip it, make a note of where you've unzipped it to so that you can find it. Yeah. Usually by default it will unzip it to a folder with this name in it, not the img, but usually that's where it will unzip it to. So as I say, make a note, because you need to know where that file is. Once you've got the image on your software, you can open up this program, the Imager program, and it's quite simple. You have 3 drop down boxes on there. First one is select the Raspberry Pi that you have. Hopefully if we have time to do the demo, you'll see it. This is a drop down box. It drops down with a list of like Raspberry Pi 2A, 3A, 3B, 4, whatever. And it actually shows you pictures of the Pi. So if you're not quite sure, you can go, mine looks like that. That's probably the one I need to select. So because we're using a Pi 0, in this instance, I've selected Pi 0. Then we go to the operating system, and on this bit, it will try and give you a whole list of all sorts of operating systems that you can load. Scroll right to the very bottom of it, and there will be an option that says custom. What you need to do is select that custom one, and then go and find that file that you've unzipped. That's why you need to know where it is, and select that. And then finally, for the storage, obviously, I'm assuming that your laptop, whatever, has a slot in it to put that SD card in. Yeah, so you need to put that SD card in and select it where it says storage. Usually the software is intelligent enough. In my laptop, I have an SD card slot in there. When I put it in there, it knows to look in the SD card slot, so it's just telling you it's the card. So once you've selected all of that, hit next, and basically what it does, it takes this image and it writes it in a form of like a bootable file to this SD card, and it can take up to 20 minutes because it will compile it first and write it, and then it will verify it just to make sure that there's no errors. And it can take I say 20 minutes is probably about the max, but it's not a 5-minute thing. You do have to wait.
How big does the card need to be?
Good question. So I would recommend probably just an 8 gig card. Do not use anything over 32 gig because most Raspberry Pis do not like anything over 32 gigs.
You're going to struggle to find an 8 gig card, and there's nothing wrong with using bigger cards. So mine's got 64.
Okay, yeah, it may have changed, but I know that when I first started doing this, a lot of the Raspberry Pis didn't like anything over about 32.
You won't find small cards anymore.
Okay, yeah, okay. But yeah, if you've got an old card knocking around, you can, 8 gig is fine for this, but okay, as James said, thanks James. Yeah. Okay. So just to, when you come to boot it up for the first time, just to clarify, in the on the Raspberry Pi, obviously I've taken the hat off for this picture so that you can see it clearly marks where everything is. So micro SD card slots in there. Make sure you get it in round the right way. So when you're putting it in, if your Raspberry Pi is like this, gold pins down and push it in. Do not force it. There is on a lot of SD card slots. There's like a click when you push them in. No click with this. It just pushes in. So don't keep pushing it, trying to feel for a click. There isn't one. You just push it in, and once it feels like it's firmly in there, then it should be fine. If you force it, you'll end up breaking the socket. So don't do it. And then once it's in there, apply power to this micro USB port on there, and again, as you can see, it says power in, and this one says USB, so this is another USB port. So use the one.
Put the hat on first, though.
Yeah. Oh yeah. As I said, I've taken the hat off.
Yeah. I know, but you need.
For this picture. Yeah. Obviously, it all needs to be as it was when you plug it in. Yeah. Don't plug the power in and then put the hat on. It all needs to be together. So hopefully, once you've plugged it all in together, we should be ready to sort of start the initial setup sequences. This is where people get a bit confused. So I've sort of put in order how you set up the initial setup of the LMDVN. So when you first connect up or boot up the MMDVM, it will boot up as like a completely standalone wireless access point, i.e. it has connectivity to nothing. It's just there and it will come up. So like your routers at home, you know, your Wi-Fi or internet, Wi-Fi routers at home, they're an access point. When you turn them on, it will have a name and then you connect to it. This is exactly the same. It will give itself a name, which we'll go through in a minute, and it's just an access point for you to be able to connect your laptop wirelessly to it. And that's it. You'll have no connection to the internet when you connect to it. It's just so that you can access the hotspot to do the initial setup. Yeah, does everyone understand that? Yeah, it's quite important because this is where people tend to get a little bit lost. So you connect to it with your laptop, computer, whatever, and you're just connected to it wirelessly. So it will come up with an SSID, Wi-Fi SSID, which is called PiStar setup. You connect to it from your laptop or computer, and once you've connected to it, you should then be able to browse to the configuration page on the actual on your Raspberry Pi, and it'll be a configuration page to set up PiStar on there. And what you do is you connect to that management page. And part of the first bit of the process is to connect the Raspberry Pi and the MMDVM hotspot to your home internet. Yep. So what you're doing is you've got your hotspot. It's just sat there. You're connected to it via your laptop. You go into the configuration page on here, and you're then telling this to then go and connect to your home Wi-Fi, and then once you've done that step, that's when you can actually start configuring the hotspot. So you go in there, tell it what your home. You'll see the steps in a minute. You tell it what your home Wi-Fi SSID is and password. You connect it. You tell it what it is. And then you reboot your MMDVM hotspot. At that point, your laptop will disconnect from it, and you won't be able to connect back to it using the PiStar setup, because now your hotspot is now attempting to connect to your home Wi-Fi. Okay?
Can I just add one little thing that's important? If you're using a Raspberry Pi Zero or those kind of things, they do not have 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi on them. A lot of home Wi-Fi systems are only beaconing out 5 gigahertz SSIDs, which means you may not find your home Wi-Fi. Here, I think last time I did a scan, the one here was only beaconing out on 5 gigs, not on 2.4. May have changed now, but originally that's what it was. So you may find that if you do end up taking this around with you and you expect to connect to some random Wi-Fi, if it's only 5 gigs, then you'll need to go into your router and turn on the 2.4 gig, or buy a different Raspberry Pi, one of the 4s or 5s.
Thank you, James. That is important, and to be quite honest, I didn't even think about that, because at home I run both 2.4 and 5 gig. I've never had an issue because it always connects to my 2.4, but thanks, that's something I didn't realise.
So will that PiStar work on a 5 as well as the 2?
Yeah.
No.
I just don't know if you if you've connected your Pi via Ethernet to your router, then you don't need to do that bit, do you?
You will, yes, you will still need to do it because you'll by default they're set to use the wireless, if I remember correctly. I'm just trying to think.
I don't know either. I would think if you plug it into Ethernet and it gets an IP address, then it's going to start connecting by default on Ethernet. Try it and see.
Yeah, I'd say try it. I've always used Wi-Fi at home. I should really plug them into my Ethernet because I've got a switch at home, but I'm just lazy. It's just easy enough to do it via the Wi-Fi. But good question, and I'll actually try that now. Now that you've asked it, I'll go home and have a play and see what it does.
If it fails to connect at this stage, what happens is that, because once you've done the configuration, you said
Yeah.
that it disconnects from the laptop. But if you've done something wrong in the,
Yeah, I mean,
can you get back somehow?
yes, you can. The easiest way to do that is reflash the SD.
You don't need to do that. If it doesn't connect to your Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
it will go into standalone mode again
Right. Yeah.
and beacon itself, and you can log in and you can add more than one Wi-Fi network. So as you roam around, you're able to.
Again, I didn't know because in the old version, it used to once you configured it, it would just sit there and.
It could just be PiStar doesn't do it.
Yeah.
I think PiStar's dead, so it's.
Well, yeah. So this is all based on PiStar. I know you use
BSD or something,
Yeah,
whatever it is.
WSP.
It's still PiStar based.
Yeah, it's
but
just a
the
fork.
development is not happening on PiStar anymore. It's been moved.
Yeah, it's been
to another
forked
project,
to.
but-
Yeah.
Certainly, the new one will allow you to
Yeah.
do all those kind of things.
But yeah, it used to be a bit of a what you just like if you typoed the password for your Wi-Fi or something. It used to be a bit of an issue because if it didn't connect, you then had to go back to reflashing the SD card to get it back to what it was. I've never had any issues because I just make sure I type everything correctly when I do it. But so this putting on here, and then as I've said, there will be a live demo at the end, time permitting. We'll see how we get on. So just to go through those steps of what that actually looks like. So you've put your SD card in there, you've plugged your Raspberry Pi in. Raspberry Pis do not boot up quickly. With all of this, you have to have patience. Do not expect everything to appear 2 seconds after you've plugged it in. It doesn't work like that. Sit and wait. A good indicator is on the edge of the Raspberry Pi, there's a little LED that shows disk activity. If that's flickering, it's doing something. So wait for it to stop flickering, and then. But basically, what should happen is you should get an SSID turn up like this, which will be unprotected. So it won't have any password or anything with it. And then so all you do is just select it and click connect. What I would say, if you have any of your other networks set to connect automatically by having this box ticked, I would recommend you untick it. In my household especially, I have lots of Wi-Fi going on in my house, and if I drop off of one, it will automatically connect to the other. And if you're trying to connect to this and it keeps hopping between the networks, it gets a little bit frustrating. So I would say temporarily disconnect them or untick that box, click connect, and then hopefully what should happen is you should, if you've not got your browser open, usually when you connect, your little Wi-Fi notification will say you have to enter your browser to make a change or make your Wi-Fi connection requires you to do something in your browser, and it will load up this this web page. Just looking at it, is that in focus or is it? It looks slightly blurred to me, but anyway.
That's okay.
Hopefully you can read it enough. So basically, if you open your browser, it will automatically hopefully open up this web page, which Web GUI, graphical user interface. Just telling you that because that's how I tend to refer to it onwards. And if you're going, what the hell is he talking about? A Web GUI? this is it. This is your web GUI, graphical user interface. So this will pop up, and that is basically the configuration screen for your MMDVM. So when it comes up, you'll find that you have all the default values pretty much set in there. So the first thing we want to do, as we said, we need to connect it to your home Wi-Fi. Now what you'll find is when you first go in, the Wi-Fi will be set to Japan, the country zone. Change that to GB, and I'll give you a caveat now. When you go to the next step, it will probably change it back to Japan, but change it to GB first, and then click save and connect. Before we go on to the next bit, to help you out, once this is connected to your home network, you need to be able to find out what IP address it has been allocated. If you're using Windows, I suggest you download this really handy tool called Advanced IP Scanner, because what that will do is once everything's booted back up again, you'll be able to scan the whole of your home Wi-Fi, and you'll be able to find your PiStar and the IP address. And you need to have that IP address because when you next connect to this, it will be via your home Wi-Fi, and you need to know what the IP address of the device is when you do it. Hopefully this will come a little bit more
Can I
clear.
give you one more tip?
Yeah.
Is if you do not hit save here and you finish all the rest of the configuration
Yeah.
and you have a screen on your PiStar hat thing, the IP address will be on the screen.
Yeah.
But if you do this, you won't be able to continue because it will reboot.
Okay, and there, again, because you're using different software, there is a caveat because
Okay.
because there's some things that happen in PiStar that trip people up, which I'll explain.
Right.
It'll become clear in a minute, but I know what you're saying. So basically, change this first, change it to GB, and also download this software. If you go to this link, it will just automatically download this piece of software, and you'll see we'll use it in a bit, and you'll see why the reason that you need it. What I will say is, when you once you've configured the connection to your home Wi-Fi, sometimes on the first reboot, I'm probably preempting my slide actually, it may not connect, but let's go through it. So set that to GB, click save. Once you've done that, you can then click scan for networks, and this will show you all of the networks available to you. So obviously find which one of them is yours, and then select. Obviously you might not have quite so many, but yeah, obviously you all know what the SSID of your home Wi-Fi is, so you need to select the one that you want to use. So that's after you've clicked the scan button. It takes about 10 seconds to run, and then eventually it will populate this. And as you can see, there is like a scroll bar there. So if you can't see in here, make sure you scroll down to find the one that you want. So in this case, as you notice there, as I just mentioned, see it's changed back to JP. Change it back to GB, and then select whichever network you wish to connect to. Type in your Wi-Fi password. Yep, so that's the password that you use to connect to your Wi-Fi at home. Click that in, and then do save and to connect.
It might be worth pointing out here, Don, that for somebody who's doing it for the first time, every time you hit the save and connect, it reboots the Pi.
Yeah,
So there'll be a delay where it looks as if nothing's happening, and then eventually it catches things up.
yeah. So as I said, yeah, patience. None of this happens fast. So fingers crossed, it's worked. But you might find the first time after you click save and connect, you might sit there and think it's not connected to anything, and in which case the only way you can come out of that is by disconnecting the power and replugging it in. And just to make the point, this is the one and only time you should ever do that. If you have one of these Raspberry Pis running, once it's all configured and everything, never ever ever just pull the power cable on it, because the likelihood is it will corrupt the SD card and it will never boot again, and you'll have to go through all of this again. So it's fine to do it at this stage before it's connected. It's usually fine. And then basically once you think it's booted up again, check the little flashing LED on there to make sure it stopped flashing. And once you think, oh, it's on my network somewhere, that's the time to look for it. So if we go back to that software that I said download, that advanced IP scanner, if you run that, that will show you all the devices that are connected to your network. Yes, I know, I've got a few. And so what you then need to do, just look down here until you see PiStar, and that is the device, that is your LMDVM hotspot, and that is the IP address in there. Make a note of that IP address, because that's now what you need to type into your browser to be able to get in to continue doing the configuration on the hotspot. So once it's done that, and you can definitely see that it's connected to your network, you should then be able to go back into this screen. This is the first screen that you'll be presented with, and what you need to do is go into configuration. So it's now got an IP address, it's now sat on your network, so we need to start configuring the rest of it. Now the first thing to do is tell it what type of modem or hat that it has connected to it, because there's multiple lists in there. So in this instance, because I'm using the dual hat, i.e. it's a duplex one and it's dual band, I select that. There's a drop down list. The drop down list isn't particularly intuitive.
That was my issue. Yeah, it took me hours to make sure I got the right one.
Yeah, there is a very long list of stuff in there, and some of the time you won't know whether it's the right one or not. I know that when I first did mine, I had to, basically, it was a bit of trial and error. So yeah, it's really the first job to do is find the correct modem, and go in there, select it, and then click apply changes. Again, it will then do, in this case it doesn't reboot, it will just stop certain services in the software and then restart them, and basically, hopefully if you've selected the right one, it will come up and basically you can then continue configuring it. So this is what James was saying about configuring all of it. I've found with PiStar, when I've done it, is if I change something in this screen and then another screen further down and then apply the changes, sometimes it will apply the changes of what I changed in that screen, but it won't apply the changes of something that I've applied in another screen. So I've always done it this way, where I'll change one thing, apply and change, then I'll change another one, apply and change, and then I'll do something else and apply and change. That's my way of doing it. If you want to do it where you configure everything and click apply and change, try it. I know I got very frustrated when I was doing it that way because it wasn't saving all the stuff that I'd changed. So I tend to do it this way, which is why I said, you know, make small changes, apply them. As you know, I've seen in the past there has been problems with it. It might be better in the.
Yeah, I've seen a video where the guy explains that the apply change button only applied to the box immediately above.
Yeah, correct. Yes, I don't know whether that's changed in the newer version.
I assume it has,
Yeah.
because it's,
Yeah,
you get the main configuration first before you even get all your network.
yeah. So in PiStar, this is all divided up into separate screens, and that each one has like an apply and change underneath it. But yeah, it explains it. And that's why I've always done it this way, whereby I'll apply and change for this configuration bit, and then I'll do an apply and change for another configuration.
The other thing about the new version, just because you said that you had trial and error,
Yeah.
I did too, to start with, after I wasn't totally sure. It turns out there's a wizard, and you can run the wizard, and it will go and try all different combinations, talk to the hardware and go, right, that's the one that you've got, that's the one that you need.
Yeah, that doesn't exist in PiStar. So so the other thing that you want to do, so once you've configured the modem, the next bit is turn on the modes that you want the MMDVM to work with. At this stage you could turn everything on. I wouldn't recommend it. If you only have DMR radio, only turn DMR on. If you only have a D-Star radio, only turn D-Star on. I've turned on both because I have a D-Star and a DMR radio. And for this, you know, for the basics, just keep it simple. So I've switched these two modes on, DMR and D-Star. And the other thing is the display that James was on about. If you have a look on top of you probably can't see it particularly well, but there is a very, very tiny LED screen on the top of the MMDVM hat, and it does display certain information in there once you've got it configured, but you have to actually select what type of screen it has. Most of them are OLED type 3s for most of the hats. That's the one to use. So once you've done that, again, apply changes. And then next we then jump back to the general configuration, and then we can start configuring all the various things. So for this, obviously your call sign, you're going to need your call sign now. The node call sign is usually your call sign, unless you're setting up a repeater or something like that, a proper repeater. You then need your DMR ID, so you need to have gone and registered to obtain a DMR ID, and that you populate in that field. You can then put in the frequencies that you want your hotspot to work on. Because I've got a duplex one, as you can see, I have a split frequency, so it's a bit like a repeater. I've got a 9.5 megahertz split on mine. So, so you can set that on. When you're setting this up, as James was mentioning earlier about weird noises in various parts of the band that shouldn't be there, please refer to the band plans and make sure that you're selecting frequencies that are to be used for digital gateways. Because, yeah, if you put that enter the frequency of TD, people aren't going to be happy. So make sure that you have a look at the RSGB band plan, read it, understand it, where you can put these devices, and then configure these. As I say, with a simplex one, you will only enter one frequency, but because this is a dual DVM, a duplex one, I've got a transmit and receive frequency in there. Put in your longitude and latitude stuff. It's just some of this information gets transmitted with DMR so people can see where you are. Put in your town locator. That we've already set, and that's leave everything else as it is. But as I say, that's really important. Check the band plan. Right. So the final bit of configuration is so you've got your MMDVM, you've got it connected to your home Wi-Fi, you've browsed onto the web GUI of it to do the configuration. This is where we actually start configuring sort of some of the DMR and PiStar configuration. So if you go down to the DMR and PiStar configuration, there's not really much to set up in there. What you need to do for your DMR master, you want to decide where you want your MMDVM hotspot to connect to get to the internet. Do you want to be using Brandmeister, or do you want to be using Phoenix? If you remember from the previous talks, with DMR, there's various suppliers, vendors, whatever you want to call it, that will provide services for DMR. A lot of people like to use Phoenix. Personally, I prefer to use Brandmeister. And so what you do is you select your node where you obviously need to be registered with these as well. So if you want to use Phoenix, you need to have set up an account on the Phoenix system. If you want to use Brandmeister, you have to have set up an account on the Brandmeister network. So I prefer Brandmeister, so I connect to the UK node out on the internet, and this hotspot security, this is basically a password that when you register within Brandmeister, you set up this password. It's probably the same with Phoenix. Never really used Phoenix, so I just know how to do a Brandmeister. So that is the password that you use there. And basically what that is your MMDVM hotspot is going to go over the internet and connect to this node. Now obviously it needs to know who is connecting, and what it will do, it will use your DMR ID, which is this down here, this section here, and it will use this password to authenticate you, and that will then connect you to the Brandmeister network. This number here, you can vary. If this is your first hotspot, just call it 01. Because I've got several hotspots, I just set this one to 4. And that is literally it. That is the bit to configure you to get onto the DMR network. As I say, if you use Phoenix, when you drop down here, it doesn't say Phoenix anywhere on there. From what I remember in the drop down list, it's called some obscure name in there. But if we can, I'll have a look in if we're doing okay for time.
It's Seabridge.
Hmm?
It's Seabridge.
It might be.
Is the original name of it?
Yeah. No, I don't think it's even that. I think it's just random letters and. But yeah. But if you connect to Phoenix, it'll be in that list somewhere. And again, you'll need to put in your Phoenix password, and obviously you're on the previous screen you've already entered your DMR ID. PiStar, dead simple. put in your DStar password. It's that's pretty much all you need to do, and also click or select the default reflector that you want to connect to when you go onto DStar. I use reflector 01 Charlie because that's where everyone seems to sit. There's lots of reflectors. Most of them are quite as anything. 01 and 03 Charlie are usually the most busiest. But the other night when I set this all up, and first test call I put out, I spoke to Ivan in Korea. So
Sounds great.
South. Unfortunately.
Elon's in South Korea.
So yeah, again with this, apply and change. Little changes, don't do them all and then click apply changes. Graham mentioned earlier, these apply to the menu system
Did you
above.
say earlier, every time you press apply, the whole thing reboots? Did you
No,
say?
not
That's
no.
only at the beginning.
That's only when you do the Wi-Fi bit. When you do these, it just stops services on it, so it will just stop certain bits of the software running while it restarts them with the new configuration. So it's not a full reboot. Again, it takes its time, but it does tell you on the GUI, it says stopping services, please wait, whatever it is, a couple of minutes, and then eventually the screen will refresh and it will come back up and it will have all your changes saved in there. Cool, once you've done that, we can look at the final checks and verifications to make sure everything is working. So when you go in, this is the normal, this screen here is the dashboard screen. And as you can see, so if we have a quick run down the left-hand side, it tells you the modes enabled. I've enabled DStar and DMR, and they should be green. And your network status, this will tell you whether you've actually connected to these actual nodes on the internet. They should also be green. If they're amber, and the usual one is, that one is usually amber, it's because you haven't, you've somehow messed up on the password for either Brandmeister or Phoenix. That's usually the issue that you get with those. So if they're amber, just go back, double check, make sure that you've got the passwords correct in there. If they're red, it usually means you've got something wrong with your internet connection, and it's not reaching them. For those who have possibly slightly more secure networks at home, it could be a firewall issue or something like that. But personally, I've never ever seen them red. I've seen them amber, mainly the DStar one. DMR one. DStar is usually fine. It's just so simple to set up. And then over on this side, we can have a look. So what we can see here, this is when I rebooted it, the actual device will announce itself on those networks. So when this is when it's restarted with the configuration, that's my obviously my MMDVN, and it just comes up and it says that it's connected to Reflector 01 Charlie. We then see a whole load of other activity going on here. So these are people using DStar, which you'll then be able to hear, assuming your radio is configured correctly. And then lastly, I did a quick call on DStar to make sure it was working. So you can see on the local RF activity, this will show you when anyone is talking via RF into your MMDVM hotspot. So obviously, as expected, S9 plus 46 dB, which is what you'd expect if you're using your handheld pretty much right next to it. and then it actually shows that that call going out on the gateway, it was sourced from RF. It was 7.9 seconds long. There was no packet loss on it, and there was no bit error rate on there. Whoever this person was, when they were connecting, probably from their MMDVM hotspot, or it could have been through a repeater, you'll see that they had a 5% packet loss, and that resulted a 15.4 bit error rate. So if you're listening to them, you'll probably hear that their voice would probably be a little bit choppy on there because they're experienced packet loss. And yeah, that's it. And then obviously you can test with DMR. I don't think I've got a screen. I don't think I've got a screenshot of me testing on DMR, but hopefully we'll see in a minute. So before we go on to the live demo, thank you for listening and sticking with me. There was a lot to go through there. Hopefully it made sense, and if I do the live demo, it will make a little bit more sense. So are there any questions before we do that?
I was only going to say the one thing. The Raspberry Pi, I don't know about the Zero, but when you set the Raspberry Pi up, you generally have to give it a password. I don't know, is that true with the Pi Zero?
What when you
load the image and
good point. The default password on PiStar is the username is pi-star, and the password is raspberry, all lowercase. Yep.
Yeah.
Do not change it. There is no real reason to change it. You can if you want, but caveat, remember what you've changed it to.
On my Raspberry Pi, I gave it a password, then didn't use it for God knows how long. When I came back to it a few weeks ago, couldn't remember the password.
Get a password manager.
I know. I have got a password manager, didn't put it in there. But
Use your password.
yes, I know. But just a warning, if you've forgotten that, if on the Raspberry Pi, if you've forgotten the password, it's a hell of a job trying to, you can't recover it, to try and change it, it's a nightmare. So in the end I remembered it.
So get yourself an application to remind you to use the password manager to remember your
Password manager.
So I've got a few more comments then.
Yeah.
So the important thing is, once you've configured all this, certainly in the new one, I assume with the old one, there is a way of exporting all of your configurations.
Yeah.
So once it's working, download that file and store it. So if you do need to wipe the card and reinstall it, you can just blast the config back on. Now I tried this the other day and it works absolutely perfectly. So that's one. The next point is, Dom very correctly said, once you've got your Raspberry Pi running, don't turn it off. So that is perfectly true. Don't just pull the power. But now your next question is, how do I turn it off?
I was going to show you.
Boot it off.
That's all very well if you've got a computer. Dom's probably going to show you how to do it with a computer, which is all very well until you haven't got a computer. So if you're going to take one of these things mobile with you, using a battery bank and tether it to your phone, which is how I configured all mine up. So I don't want to take a laptop around with me to be able to use it with the thing. On PiStar and the new one, of whichever name it is, I've forgotten, they have the ability in the advanced configuration where you can send custom messages to the Raspberry Pi via your handheld. A private group, or private talk group number. And I programmed 3 different ones on my handheld. One to restart it, one to shut it down, and one to stop the services. That means when you finish, you just go talk group, shut down, key it up, and immediately your Raspberry Pi will shut down, and then you're safe to go. If you've got a screen on it, it'll even tell you that it's done and ready to go. but do not pull the plug
Yeah.
because you will destroy it.
Yeah, there's
That's where mine is, I think.
yeah,
Very
so many people on all the forums. I did this and now it won't even boot. It's like, did you shut it down gracefully? No, I just pulled the power. That would be why then it would have corrupted the SD card. So.
What I'm surprised is they haven't put just a tactile switch on the hats, which is then connected to one of the GPIO pins. We could hack something in, but again, if you don't have access to it, then just sending to your custom talk group is a great way of doing it.
And that's a good point there, James, because I wasn't even aware of those custom talk groups, and it's just not something my mind just because it runs at home most of the time. So with the demo that I'm doing here, just while it's booting up, I'm just using a battery power pack to power up the Raspberry Pi, and as you can see, it's starting to flash lights on top. There's a little green LED that I was on about disk activity. So that'll flash. Give it a few seconds to.
While that's doing that, Tom, do you have the flashing software that you can open up
Yes,
and quickly
yeah.
display? I'll show you another tip that will save you the Wi-Fi stuff that you did at the beginning, because that can be time consuming.
When I downloaded mine, while you're thinking about doing that, there was something about when I tried to download the software for flashing the card, it came up and said, we can't do this because of copyright issues. And you had to go through another reflector, which then put the 2 bits, gave you the 2 bits, which it then configured together, which I thought was a rather weird, wonderful setup. But it was something to do with copyright changes.
Probably the wrong website.
Yeah, I don't.
It was the website that, who did we have? The guy who came down
No,
to give us Nigel. Yeah, it was the website that he gave.
Dom, just for me, for my benefit, because I know nothing about this, what's the purpose of the transmission output, the transmitting 9 megs apart? Where's that going? And it's transmitting around?
To your radio.
Just to the radio, nowhere else?
Yep, nowhere else. It's all it is. It just means that my connection into this is a duplex connection.
Right.
So it's got a transmit in and a receive out.
So what's the power level of that?
They reckon 1 watt.
Right.
Not
So if you were on a
insignificant.
hill or something, you'd have a fair old coverage.
It's not insignificant.
Put it this way: when I initially was doing this, Rob G4 XUT could connect to my MMDVM from his house, and he's probably about on.
Where were you? Oh,
No, at home.
Oh,
so
yeah.
yeah, he lives.
high, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's a high area.
You don't need a notice of variation for this. And then there'll be
No. No. Yes, in my haste, I've booted it with the one that was working. So this is a prime example whereby obviously this is now trying to connect to my home Wi-Fi,
What do you mean?
and now I don't have access to this to gracefully shut this down. So I'm going to have to ungracefully shut it down, which means it will probably corrupt it. It doesn't matter. I've saved the config on it, so it's fine. And also, it is only a demo one, so I'm not that bothered about it. So let me put in the proper SD card, which is the one that has no config on it yet.
To be fair, my Pi 4 at home, I've killed the power on that God knows how many times. Didn't seem to.
It depends what the operating system is doing. If it's writing, that's when it will die. So the one I've got for my 3D printer, I just power that on and off, and that seems to be fine. It very much depends on what the base image is doing to the SD card.
Does it always write it back, or is there a caching system and then it writes it back when it feels
What,
like
the settings?
Yeah, no, the
I don't know what that's. It could be writing log files to the. It could be doing anything. I don't know how they've configured that all up.
Yeah, just to explain what I was saying there, so this SD card that was in there was one that was all fully configured to connect to my Wi-Fi at home, and and basically, if I boot it up here, it's never ever going to connect to my Wi-Fi, and it means I don't have any access in to gracefully shut it down. So I've just pulled the power cable on it, which you shouldn't do.
Do what Dom says, not what he
Yeah.
does.
We'll see what state that ends up in when I retry it at home. So I've now put in another SD card, which would be at the stage where I've literally just flashed the software onto it, and I'm booting it up for the first time. And so if we...
Do you need to have something on the screen done or not?
Yes, I will. 2 seconds. Well, that was rather weird because it was there and now it's just disappeared.
We did say be patient.
Yes. Yeah. Unless that's a function that they've put in the new one, whereby if it can't connect to the Wi-Fi, it goes back into setup mode. So that actually might have been. But we're waiting to see what this one does.
While that's booting, do you want to bring that imager software up and I'll show you that Wi-Fi?
Yeah. Where's my glasses? There we go.
Okay. So the benefit of using the Raspberry Pi imager as opposed to using Balena or one of the other ones is this thing knows how to work the operating system that goes on there. So if you were to
Hang on, because James has explained.
if you show them the choose device now, if you click on that, and you're probably always going to pick a W type. That's interesting. You got no network, maybe. Maybe it needs to be connected to the network. I've never seen it have nothing in it.
No, I've never seen it do that either.
Yeah, the network's
You want to join the Wi-Fi and see if it changes?
Yeah, I can do.
And while Dom's typing that, and the other thing to be careful of is when you do the choose storage, make sure you are definitely 100% selecting your SD card and not some other hard drive in your machine or a USB drive that's got all your stuff on it. Be certain that that is your card, because it's very easy to pick the wrong thing if you've got a number of drives. You may need to restart it.
Let me just close that restart. Yeah, I've never ever seen it do that before, where it's just completely blank.
Okay, that's better. So you're probably going to pick something like the Raspberry Pi 0, Raspberry Pi 2, W2, it was up a bit. Raspberry Pi 0, 2W, that's probably the one that you're going to pick. That's the latest one that costs you 14, 16 quid. And if you do the choose OS that Don was just talking about, and then scroll all the way to the bottom. Well, here's use custom. Pick your image. And then if you pick your storage device, we're not actually going to flash it. Hopefully we can get past that. Can we pick that? Now say next. It will not flash yet, so don't worry about that.
You can. It will do the custom.
It will allow you to do customization. So we just show that screen. Right. If you do edit settings at this point, you can make lots of changes. So you can set, if you want, a custom name for what you want this thing to be called. If you don't want it to be called PiStar, you can set a custom username and password. So rather than using whatever they want, if you know what you want to set it to in the beginning, you can set that. The more critical thing is the configure wireless LAN. That will allow you to click on that and put in your, just click the configure wireless LAN there. There you go. That will allow you to preset the SSID and password that it will store on the Raspberry Pi from the very beginning. And you can set the LAN country to GB, which will give you all of your all the channels that you've got in the UK. If you do all that, you don't have to do that dance at the very beginning about rebooting and connecting to this thing and all that kind of stuff. And that works for not just this image, but just Raspberry Pis in general. That will save you a lot of hassle.
Just, it's worth mentioning on that, if you actually go onto the PiStar site and the WSPD or whatever it's called, I can't remember. It is WSPD, yeah. If you go on that, it actually recommends that you don't do that.
Oh, I've done all mine that way.
I'm just saying, just if people go, hang on, James said you could do that, but on the website it will say don't do that. I think it's just the reason they do it is so that it doesn't confuse people, and you know, people can mess up in this bit and whatever. But so would you let's come out of that because I don't want to. Let's see if this one has booted. Yeah, so there we go. So as you said, while we were doing that, this is, as I said, this was fresh. This is gone into the initial PiStar setup. So if I click connect on that, before I do that, let me just make sure that this, let me disconnect from there. Yeah, and that's not connected automatically. And oh, it's connected. So if I now open my browser with any luck,
You can, at this point, you can probably browse anywhere, and you'll get sent to that captive portal.
there you go. So all I did there was I just disconnected and reconnected just so that it would trigger this portal. So this is what it first comes up looking like. And as you see, if you wait, it will eventually come up. So this is the configuration page. So the first bit that we discussed was configuring the Wi-Fi down here. So you go to this section down here and click on configure Wi-Fi, and as you can see it says Japan. So I will change that to GB, and as you see it will probably change back again. So it's changed to GB, as you can see in the just so that people are following this. So you can see it's changed to GB there, and so with it set to that, I can now configure the Wi-Fi, and if I then click scan for networks, and you just wait a few minutes, and in a minute that page should refresh, and hopefully we'll, there we go. and this is why I didn't want to do live demos.
Because this is a 5 gig only network.
Is it only 5? Yeah. Okay. And there you
There
go.
you go.
So that's it. So I'll probably have to.
Spot your phone.
Yeah, I have to use my phone. But that's a good point. I'd never ever realised actually, James, because obviously I've got loads of 2.4 at home. So what I'll do is rather than connect it to this network here, I shall connect it to my phone. So bear with me.
Can I ask a stupid question while I'm here? The name M1ABC, where do you, is that just an ordinary name? Or?
That'll be your call sign. That's just a demo.
That's a demo.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
okay, sorry.
Have to overwrite it.
So the poor fellow that's got the call sign M1.
Yeah, that's right.
He's
Yeah.
got nerves in
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
He's everywhere.
He's really fed up, yeah.
Or N0 call is another one.
M9ZZ0.
There is a PA guy got PA0DIK, I think. But he only comes on CW, I think.
I think the RSGB filters out all the rude
They used to.
ones.
Yeah.
They used to.
Yeah, never used to get call signs with a Q in, did
No, you weren't
That's
allowed
what
Q call
But you do
signs.
now.
You couldn't have G3Q something on it. That was
You
not
do
right.
now.
Because what? Just,
Because it confused with the Q.
Oh,
The Q codes, you know, QRZ, QSD, and you know, QRT, and all that sort of thing.
QSY.
Only Americans have had them for years, but
Yeah.
they're issuing them here now, aren't
Yeah, there's the Q's in
Do you want one
No, particularly.
M3 QRM or something?
there. In the old days with G9 QRM when you could run a kilowatt legally.
Right. Right, so hopefully.
PC uses Phoenix, isn't it? Yeah, so you put your hotspot on downloads and use CCD for Phoenix.
Never hear TC. I've been on all the time. Never heard anything.
You're on the right bit. You're on the right,
Yeah.
whatever.
It used to work, what, a couple of years ago.
Some of them will be able to read you.
Is it dropping back to the other ones like on Ultra?
Yeah, so now what will probably happen is
I need to do a test with some actually as well.
so yeah, as you saw, basically, we were connected to it locally. I put in the local SSID of the Wi-Fi here in the club and the password, and then obviously I get disconnected on the laptop, and the only way to get to then to reboot the PiStar is to disconnect the power, as I say, one and only time you do it, and then so basically that's exactly what I did, just disconnected it, reconnected it, and then we're now both linked to my phone. We're using that as a internet hotspot because the, as James was saying, the Wi-Fi here is only 5G and it doesn't beacon its SSID.
Sorry, no, you're right. You're right. It's me.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So what we've done now is my laptop is now connected to my phone, and the Raspberry Pi, PiStar, MMDVM is also connected to my phone, and they both now have access to the internet. And then if we go back to this tool that I was saying, this advanced IP scanner, just while we were setting up there, I've just run a scan, and as you can see, it's now telling me what the IP address of it is, which is 192.168.16.251. So I'll just quickly make a note of that. 192.168.16.
So the IP address is picked up from the router again?
251.
Yeah,
Sorry.
TCP/IP.
Yeah.
So will that IP address change if you get, or does that become static IP?
It's not static.
No, it won't be static. It may change, but if you leave your MMDVM on at home, it will usually keep the same IP forevermore. And most routers do actually have like a caching table in them, so that if you ever connect back again with that MAC address, as long as nothing else has taken the IP address, it will probably reallocate the same address.
And the other benefit is you don't always need to even know what the IP address is. If you just type in pi-star, the host name that you see in there, into your browser, it'll bring it up anyway.
But yeah, if you do need to know the IP address, that is it. Yeah, what you were just saying, that doesn't work on my home system because the way I have DNS set up at home. But we won't go into that. Okay, so if we now browse to that address, instead of this one, so this is going to be. Now this one is going to be HTTP. It's not HTTPS. Most browsers now will try and default you to HTTPS, but the connection is HTTP because it's unencrypted. 192.168 16.251. There we go. So we are now connected via the network. If I wait just a few seconds, that page, there you go. So this is where it prompts you for the password to log into the PiStar, which is his name's Pi-star, and the password is Raspberry in lowercase. I find out I typed it wrong.
You put a small p in a capital P.
No.
No?
Password manager.
Yeah.
It's a C raspberry. And you forget the password for the password manager.
Yeah, spelling raspberry is the problem.
It's just my fat fingers actually. So there we go. We get into the configuration. So I'm probably going to go, because I want to try and see if I can demo it just to show that it works. Probably going to do
What I built earlier.
lots of this quickly. So the first thing we need to do is, I know that this is going to be a duplex because of the type of hat I've got. We then need to go down to
Apply changes.
so let's apply changes. Yeah, I was jumping ahead of myself there. So apply changes. So this is where it doesn't completely reboot. It will just stop and start services, and then it will come back up again. And if you remember at the beginning, I said, be patient. You really do need to be patient.
Have a beer.
It is a Linux share file.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
time.
beer lubricates the modem.
Yeah, the time to do this is when you're not in a hurry.
Mm.
And there you go. So it then says it's stopping services and it's changing various bits and pieces, and it says that the modem selection has been updated. Just reminding you to select the right modem now. So as you can see, it's all slightly changed in here now.
Including the fact that you've got two frequencies.
Yeah, two radio frequencies.
Yep, we've got two frequencies showing up in there.
Need your call sign.
Yep, so there it is. I always miss it because it's so small. Right, so this is where you now have to select what modem type you have. So go in here, and as you can see, there is this list, and it really isn't helpful. And you can't scroll this list, but because I know the type of pack that I've got, so I can search. So mine's an dual hat, it's that one there. So again, make that selection. Because I'm in this box, I will quickly change my call sign to E0WHQ. I won't change the locator, and which way is the reverse? I think that's 439,475. I will have to just check
I
that.
think that was the 430 and you had 439
Yeah,
second.
yeah, I'm just I couldn't remember which way around I put the split, and that's 4. We'll soon see 4. Yeah, no, you were right, because it's obviously remembered it from when I did it before, so that was going to be 430. Yeah, there you go. Oh. Yeah, 437. Blah blah blah. I think I can get away with that.
Those.
I'll quickly do. Swindon. Look at that. Country is GB. That was good. So apply changes.
Swig of beer.
But the URL that you can see there, you can put anything you like in there.
Yeah.
Your QRZ page, your personal website, whatever.
Yeah, if you go back and look through the slides, you'll see that I put my QRZ page in there. But as James said, you can put literally anything in there.
What's its purpose?
I think if someone looks you up on like Brandmeister, it will give that URL for more information. Okay, so that's that bit done. So let's turn on DMR and D-Star and turn on the LED display. Apply changes. As you can see, once you've done this a few times, you get used to what you have to do. Just while we're waiting for this to do its thing, is there any other questions?
What does the little display show on the top of the...
Literally, it will show you it will show you things like when it's initializing. It will show you it's now saying initializing on the display, and then once it then comes up, when it's in use, if someone connects via D-Star, it will come up with the details of the D-Star connection, like the call sign and things like that, and the
Do you
And when it's idle, you've just got the
That's on mine.
logo
That's on
going
mine.
through.
It depends. If you've bought one of the commercial ones, you can change how it displays stuff. I just use the default one there, but obviously you can program it to show different stuff.
This is the
Right,
picture
so-
of mine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
talking about that.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
So
Yeah, you should be.
the next bit is so by default it's actually defaulted to Brown Meister UK node. So I'm just going to so
You haven't got your ID in.
no, I haven't got my ID in there. I guess it's okay to.
It's not secret, it's public.
Yeah, it is.
Well, this is true.
Yeah, so I just need to check. Yeah, I obfuscated it for the purpose of the slides, but bear with me. I forgot that I'd need to enter this. So I've entered my DMR ID. So if just to cover off what we were talking about, can you make these private or public? So if we have a quick look at the general configuration there, where it says node type, if you set it to private, only your DMR ID will be able to use it. Yeah. If you set it to public, any DMR ID will be able to use it.
But that is for the entire gateway, not per service. by the
Yes.
looks of that.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
Right, so let me just do the rest of the configuration here. So I just need to enter my password, which is
And the requirement for an NOV, if you make it public, is gone now, right?
for low.
For low power ones, I think, isn't that what one of the recent changes
Yeah.
was?
Yeah. So I just noticed I should have.
But I think you can put a repeater up with an NLV if you want to.
Yeah.
Or a beacon. You can do beacons without an NLV, I think.
Just at the end of this, because we're going to be running quite close, can everyone please help in putting chairs away, tidying up the canteen? Sorry about the public information, but we're going to be running close for time. So it's just doing its thing at the moment. So as per your question, at the moment on here, while it's making these changes, it says offline, so you know what it's doing. Okay, right, so the last few changes. One thing I forgot to change is this. I need to set this to 1, and I need to set my DMR to clock key 2. And then I need to apply those changes, and then I'll quickly do the PiStar one, and then fingers crossed we should be good to test.
So how many people in the club have got one of these?
No, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I'm done with it. Do we need a frequency allocation table for West Swing?
It might be useful. But it's good that several members of the club are now trying this sort of since we've had these talks on DMR. It's good.
That's why nobody's on TC.
Okay, and the last bit is I'm just going to quickly configure the D-Star, and then hopefully we'll be able to check. So reflector.
Are these things like the equivalent of the talk groups on DMR?
Yeah, so yeah, these are similar to the talk groups. It's just that I know that reflector 01 Charlie and 03 Charlie are usually the busiest. So if I apply those changes, fingers crossed, we'll then hopefully be able to put a call in. It's now come up, so if we now go to the dashboard, this is where we hope to see everything is green. Well, that's looking promising. So as we discussed, oh, no, it isn't.
Yeah,
So I'll leave that there, but that's actually good that it's done that, because it showed, and I think I know why that is. I think I typoed my password when I put it in. But what we can do, we can test it with, fingers crossed this works, with D-Star. So 2E0WHQ, testing through reflector 01 Charlie. And there you go, that's so as you can see, just to show you there, so that was my RF call in, and that's it reaching the gateway, and so that's on there. So as you can see, we were talking about, because I'm running two modes. Oh, let me just put out a call just in case someone does come back. 2E0WHQ calling through reflector 01 Charlie for radio check. As you can see, my laptop loves RF.
Working fine, 2 Echo 0, how are you?
2E0 Lima India uniform. Thank you for coming back to the call. The name here is Dom, and currently doing a live demonstration for the Swindon and District Amateur Radio Club. So really appreciate you coming back to the call there. From 2 Echo 0 Whiskey Hotel Quebec.
2 Echo 0, Lima India uniform, looking into the phone number, I'm in the radio phone there. From 2E0 IU here, who's the part of the East Lancs and the East Lancs group radio phone, and then now I'm amalgamated with the Burger radio phone. I'm in Burger Lancs, and I'm running it. I think pretty warmly, and I'm also doing
So the important thing, as we're running short of time, apologies, I haven't done the DMR, but I can assure you it will work if I type my password incorrectly. So the important thing, how to shut this down gracefully. If you go to admin, and then go to power, and then click shutdown.
Not really going it wrong.
So that is it. I hope you enjoyed
Well
it.
done.